Hello and welcome to my channel. Go ahead, hit the like, hit the share. This video, we're going to talk about this new reporting. It says, 3 arrested for separate schemes to harass, threaten, intimidate, and bribe alleged R. Kelly victims. According to this article, it says, pursuant to an ongoing investigation into Robert Sylvester Kelly, also known as R. Kelly, initiated by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Homeland Security investigations in New York and the New York City Police Department, three separate criminals complaints were unsealed Tuesday in federal court charging defendants Richard Arlene Jr., Donnell Russell, and Michael Williams, respectively, with crimes relating to their efforts to harass, intimidate, threaten, or corruptly influence individuals named as alleged victims in the racketeering case against Kelly, currently pending in the Eastern District of New York. The Kelly case. It says, strange, it says to influence the individuals named as alleged victims in the case, when in the case there is no names. They're referred to as Jane Does. But anyway, Arlene Jr., 31, is charged with attempting to corruptly persuade the testimony of an alleged victim in the Kelly case identified in the complaint as Jane Doe, and engaging in misleading conduct towards the victim with intent to influence, delay, and prevent her testimony in the Kelly case, as well as corruptly offering something of value to the victim, with the intent to influence her testimony as a witness upon a trial, hearing, and other proceeding. Arlene Jr. was arrested early Tuesday in Dolton, Illinois, and his initial appearance took place Tuesday afternoon. A second criminal complaint charges Russell, 45, with using the mail, the internet, and cellular phones to attempt to cause emotional distress to another individual identified in the complaint as Jane Doe, an alleged victim in the Kelly case, as well as Jane Doe's mother, with the intent to harass and intimidate Jane Doe and her mother. Russell's initial appearance will take place before a United States magistrate judge in the Eastern District of New York at a date to be determined in the near future. A third criminal complaint charges Williams, 37, with using and attempting to use intimidation and threats against an alleged victim in the Kelly case, with intent to influence, delay, and prevent her testimony in the Kelly case. The complaint also charges Williams with maliciously damaging and destroying a vehicle by means of fire and an explosive. Williams was arrested early Tuesday in Pompano Beach, Florida, and his initial appearance is scheduled for Wednesday at the federal courthouse in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's funny, everybody got a court date except Don Russell. These crimes shock the conscience. The men charged today allegedly have shown that there is no line they will not cross to help Kelly avoid the consequences of his alleged crimes, even if it means re-victimizing his accusers. These acts not only fly in the face of human decency, they insult the very rule of law. HSI will continue to bring the full force of our investigative powers to pursue those seeking to attack witnesses and pervert the cause of justice. To the victims of these and other crimes, we stand with you. We will meet your bravery with resolve and to keep you safe and tell your story, said HSI New York Special Agent in Charge Peter C. Fitzhugh. And I'll put the link to this article in the description so you can check out for that. I'll stop right there and pick up at this point because I find it very, very interesting. According to the article, as alleged between January 9th, 2020 and June 2020, Arline Jr., a self-proclaimed longtime friend of Kelly, attempted to illegally influence the cooperation and testimony of an alleged victim in the Kelly case. After learning of Arline Jr.'s plan, the victim contacted law enforcement and under the supervision of law enforcement authorities continued to communicate with him. During a series of consensually recorded phone calls, as well as in calls and texts captured pursuant to a judicially authorized wiretap, Arline Jr. discussed a scheme in which the victim would receive compensation, including a proposed payment of $500,000 to keep her from cooperating with the government. During one of the recorded telephone calls, Arline Jr. claimed that he had communicated with Kelly while Kelly was incarcerated via a three-way call with another individual. The intercepted communications also include Arline Jr.'s discussing plans to pay the victim to be quiet, explaining that if I had a way to talk to Rob, being next to him and telling him what's going on without nobody listening to, no feds, nobody, he gonna pay her off to be quiet because she got too much. She got too much. As alleged, between November 2018 and February 2020, Russell, a self-described manager, advisor, and friend of Kelly, used the mail, telephones, and the internet to harass and intimidate Jane Doe, an alleged victim in the case, and her mother after Jane Doe filed a civil lawsuit against R. Kelly. Specifically, Russell threatened to reveal sexually explicit photos of Jane Doe and to publicly reveal her sexual history if she did not withdraw her lawsuit. So I'm going to stop there, and again, I'm going to put this link in the description for you to go read yourself. And the reason I stopped there, because let's just go back in our memory bank. We do recall an individual doing interviews on multiple platforms making certain statements. He told us how he sent this cease and desist, and he was basically promoting this surviving lies, etc., etc. Well, let me remind some what I said then. I didn't feel like Don Russell was his manager in the first place. And the problem was the way things were handled from the beginning, and that's why we are where we are today. Because of the actions of other people. The problem is, how can you hold R. Kelly accountable when you can't prove that he authorized these actions? You even have one of the guys from the indictment stating if he had a way to talk to R. Kelly, he knows this, but you're already saying if you had a way to talk to him. So that already states you're not talking to him. At this particular point, it didn't make any sense to me as to why this guy would be sending a cease and desist instead of R. Kelly's attorneys. I do recall hearing R. Kelly speak on having numerous attorneys So why in the hell wouldn't your attorneys handle something such as a cease and desist? It made no sense. And the more I just watched some things going on, the more it became clear to me that this individual was doing things intentionally, in my opinion. Certain things he did, certain things he said, just made it seem like he was intentionally trying to sabotage R. Kelly's case and or save his own ass, however you want to look at it.
You were saying he was young and his sister was that age. Does he?
His sister was 10 years older than him.
Right, a teenager. Right. But I'm saying perhaps it's the age of his alleged victim.
Right. Say it again.
But that's about the age of his alleged victim.
Yeah, I mean, so what should be? Who he should be in the room with is psychiatrist, not police. I mean.
So when I heard that interview last year, something about him was just off for me. So again, I just sat back and I watched. And some things just stood out to me. So let me point them out to you. Greenberg released this statement via Twitter saying, "We just learned of the charging of several so-called associates of R. Kelly. Without question, Robert Kelly has nothing to do with any of those alleged acts by those charged. He hasn't attempted to intimidate anyone or encourage anyone to do so. No involvement whatsoever." Many people fail to realize that last year, when Cash Jones emerged, she began to say things like she was the person who came up with the idea of surviving lies, and that the reason why she began to speak out is because she was seeing things that didn't look right with her, that it looked like people were intentionally doing things to sabotage R. Kelly. Things like that went unnoticed. And when I started hearing other bloggers focus on other things, I knew that the topics in which they were talking about came from one person. They were all pushing the same narratives. So, of course, I'm going to look in another direction. Because what I began to observe was very interesting. A lot of people forgot that little bomb threat that happened after Surviving R. Kelly's premiere, or during the premiere. The police were looking for Don Russell. According to the articles put out, it says police have a connection from a member of R. Kelly's entourage to a shooting threat made during a screening of the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries. Hold up. I thought they said it was a bomb threat. Anyways, law enforcement sources tell us NYPD has Don Russell listed as a person of interest for the incident that went down last month in New York City. We know Russell is a business associate of Kelly. We're told police want to speak to him about the threats that were phoned in a theater as it was showing the Lifetime docuseries. As we reported, someone called the new house just 20 minutes into the screening and warned someone in the audience would start shooting up the place if the program continued. The venue was immediately evacuated. Cops tracked the number down to a man with the Chicago-based 773 area code. We're told police have connected that number to Russell and have attempted to make contact with him, but have had no luck thus far. So when I saw him doing his little thing on YouTube with all these other channels, I'm looking like, what type of shit? Am I tripping? Make that shit make sense. If the police looking for you, and especially for the simple fact a lot of people overlooked, let's go, the same time in which James Mason was arrested for allegedly threatening Tim Savage, Don Russell's name was mentioned then. And at that particular time, which was last year, I asked the question, if according to the articles, Don Russell was the person who made the threats, why was James Mason the person arrested? It made no sense to me. But I tell you what, something about him never sat right with me. So when you go into looking into these trademarks, like I mentioned before, RSK Enterprises was listed under James Mason's name. So maybe that would be why he could have been the person Tim Savage gave in that position. According to, like I said, when Cash came on the platform, she felt like somebody was setting R. Kelly up. Also listed in this new indictment is, of course, the Indie Bill Corporation. If you do think about it, you recall this same person was talking about his company, what he's trying to do. But the more I start to hear these people talk about the scamming and scamming and scamming, the more I started to watch in a different angle. Who would be in the position to have some of R. Kelly's possessions? Because certain things that came out told me a lot. As I've said before, according to people in those little groups, people were sending debit cards to an individual that was claiming to be R. Kelly's manager. And I said then, which was last year, that I felt like it was Don behind that, according to the source information that I got. So with all that being said, I have known this whole time that, of course, the FBI is watching. That's obvious. You hear them sitting here keep asking and worrying about this man's money, obviously because they want him to take a plea deal. People keep talking about the FBI's conviction rate, but they fail to acknowledge the fact that those conviction rates are based off the fact that majority of these people are taking plea deals for the simple fact they're fearful of going up against the FBI, and especially if they don't have the finances. So everybody knows, of course, they're trying to isolate your financing so that you don't have the defense to fight your case. Does that sound a little familiar? Because there's been so much hoopla about this defense fund. And I made a simple suggestion last year that people could have followed, and that was clearly, if you wanted to donate money to him, why not just send it to his commissary? That'll nip all the shit in the bud. But the fact that people were still on edging it on, and I knew a lot of these stories that have been refurbished on YouTube have come directly from Don. I knew that his involvement runs deep as well. So I never understood why people were just so confident in saying that he is for Rob, when from the beginning, people have in so many words told you that R. Kelly did not trust him, that he is not R. Kelly's manager. Even he came on here and tried to make that clear and dance around what he calls himself. With all that being said, it should be clear that R. Kelly had absolutely nothing to do with the cease and desist, with Faith's photos being uploaded to the Surviving Lies page. He has not been behind a lot of the actions that we have seen other people talk about. Let's just keep that clear. Especially when it comes to this car incident, when it comes to Azriel. In short, this should just be yet another example of how people were acting on their own accord, proclaiming it's for R. Kelly, meanwhile making him look bad in the public eye. So consider that when you think about these alleged victims and how it could be very well possible that they were more in a relationship or situationship or whatever you want to call it, an entanglement with R. Kelly's inner circle rather than with him. Just think about it. What are your thoughts about the fact that these three were arrested? How do you feel like it will be viewed by the defense? Do you think it will help the defense? Or do you think it would be just another nail in R. Kelly's coffin, considering, of course, they're going to make it as though R. Kelly encouraged this type of behavior? Leave your comments below. I can't wait to read them because this one is good. And I have been trying to stay away from this particular character for a while now, just because I wanted to see how it played out. People trying to get an exclusive can end up in a situation where it's really not productive. Y'all have a good day.